My funeral was conducted with the highest honors. After all, I was Zhao Xun's lawful wife, his empress. I presided over the inner court for 4 years, upheld every duty, and never once made a mistake. Even later, when he favored Consort Chen to the point of falling out with the Empress Dowager, it was I who mediated between them. When Consort Chen fell ill, he stayed by her bedside for 3 days and nights, never changing his robes, barely touching food or water. When it was my turn, there was no pain on his face. He merely held my hand as it gradually grew cold and sat there for a long while. "If there is a next life," he said softly, "I will still grant you the position of empress." I truly did reach the next life. At that time, Zhao Xun had not yet met the love of his life. He agreed to let the empress choose a virtuous noble lady to be his princess consort. The empress pointed to me. When he looked over, her fingertip shifted just an inch aside, choosing another. "Let us choose the second miss of the Li family instead."
Welcome to a journey of love and destiny under the moonlight. I'm the voice behind Moonlit Love Stories. Now let us step into the story.
The moment my eyes met Zhao Xun's, I hurriedly looked away. Seated above was the 18-year-old Prince of Wei, Zhao Xun. Dressed in magnificent robes, his face refined as carved jade. Yet his expression was distant, cold, as if detached from everything around him. He had reached the age to discuss marriage. He had no beloved, so he left the matter entirely to the Empress. In this life, the Empress had asked me once as well. I declined gently, so she sighed with mild regret, her fingertip pausing briefly before moving lightly to the next name. "Li Shuanghua. Let us choose the second miss of the Li family instead." Li Shuanghua rose gladly and knelt to give thanks. Zhao Xun lifted his eyes slightly. His cool, detached gaze rested on her for a brief moment, just as it once had on me. No admiration, no displeasure, only a look of acceptable enough, as he accepted the decision. The Empress followed protocol and asked casually, "Does the Prince of Wei have any objections?" He paused, then said, "No. If she was not someone he loved, then anyone would do." As we left the hall, fine rain fell steadily. Puddles had formed on the ground, reflecting blurred silhouettes. I lifted the edge of my umbrella slightly and met the reflection of my 15-year-old self. For a moment it felt like another lifetime. Zhao Xun's words were law. Once he agreed to her marriage, it could not be changed. I would never again die of illness within the palace. I remember the day I died with perfect clarity. People came in waves. Court officials knelt outside the hall. Noblewomen knelt inside. Only Consort Chen did not come. She was delicate and frail, afraid of catching my illness. Zhao Xun sat beside me, holding my cool hand. His silk sleeve covered the back of my hand, soft and warm. My eyelids drooped slightly as I struggled to recall what I needed to tell him. "If you are to establish a new empress," I said faintly, "please choose noble Consort Li. She is steady and dignified. She will not make things difficult for Consort Chen." I was not without selfish motives. First, though Li Shuanghua and I had competed for many years, I admired her. Her lifelong wish was to stand above all others, and I was willing to place her in that high position. Second, deep down I hated both Consort Chen and Zhao Xun. She entered the palace as a commoner. Without bearing a son, she was still granted the title of consort. The court was thrown into uproar. Officials remonstrated endlessly. Even my father's secret letters reached my hands. It was year's end, the affairs of the inner palace were overwhelming, and I was heavily pregnant. Bound by duty, I had no choice but to go persuade Zhao Xun. Outside the hall, wind and snow filled the sky. He agreed to see only me, out of regard for the child in my womb. Inside it was warm as spring. He stood aloof and cold, eyes lowered slightly, and spoke only 2 sentences. "Empress, even you have come to force me? You have lived deep within the palace too long. You do not understand. I have rarely met someone to whom I am willing to entrust my true feelings." I froze, clutching my sleeve in humiliation. True feelings. I had them too. When I married Zhao Xun, I had just passed my 16th birthday. As the red bridal veil was lifted, I collided with those calm, luminous eyes, and ripples stirred quietly in my heart. Later, I was his Princess of Wei for 3 years, then his Empress for 3 more. We treated each other with courtesy and respect, like guests at the same table. I thought that at the very least there was affection between us. I was too heartbroken to notice that my steps carried remnants of snow. By the time I left, the snow had melted, leaving dampness beneath my feet. As I took my leave, I slipped and fell outside the hall gates, forcing me to take to bed to protect my pregnancy. That fall made Zhao Xun withdraw his decree for the first time. The young woman failed to be named consort. Unable to restrain herself, she lashed out in rage. "So this is the Empress," she sneered. "I'd heard long ago of her virtue and wished to pay my respects. Who would have thought that just to stop me from becoming a consort, she would even use her legitimate heir? Such methods are truly despicable." She struck precisely where it hurt most. Dragging my ill body, I summoned her and ordered her slapped 20 times. Her face swollen and red, she fled in tears. When Zhao Xun learned of it, he was furious. To back her, he issued an edict granting her the title of Consort Chen, ensuring I could no longer touch her easily. From that day on, Consort Chen and I became enemies. But I had not intended to make things difficult for her. She had spoken out of turn first. If I had not punished her, I would never have been able to command respect afterward. I explained this to Zhao Xun. After listening, he merely smiled casually, a hint of mockery in his eyes. "If you wanted to establish authority," he said lightly, "you could have just announced that punishment had been carried out. Why actually strike her?" My heart shrank abruptly. I suddenly realized the man before me was not only the emperor. He could also be someone else's shield. Someone who, for another person, could place me in an impossible position. Later, Consort Chen monopolized his favor. All the other concubines had to avoid her edge. I had no choice. My worries grew heavier. I often thought of the empresses who lost favor and were cast aside. Zhao Xun was no puppet. He was the son of heaven, holding absolute power over life and death. I had made things difficult for Consort Chen once, and he had already warned me. If one day I truly blocked her path, I dared not imagine my end. A sickness took root in my heart. Day by day I withered. When I was 7 months pregnant, Consort Chen collided with me once again. She was holding her beloved dog in her arms when she suddenly said, without context, "Your Majesty, the same trick can only be used once." I frowned and ordered that she be taken away, refusing to see her. But it was already too late. The dog suddenly went mad, barking wildly as it lunged at me. Someone stepped in front of me, yet I was still frightened out of my wits and fell hard to the ground. By the time Zhao Xun arrived, noble Consort Li had already ordered her to be taken into custody. Consort Chen was crying like a pear blossom drenched in rain, her pale wrist pinched and bruised, blue and purple. Sobbing, she said, "I don't even know what happened." The moment the Empress saw me, she fell backward. And then she had my dog beaten to death. Zhao Xun helped her up, fury written across his face, and came toward me, convinced once again that I had used my child to frame her. When he arrived, all he saw were palace servants carrying basin after basin of blood-stained water out of the hall. I went into premature labor. The child lived for only half a day, never even given a name. I lay unconscious for 3 days. Zhao Xun stayed by my side for 2 of them. At the brink of death, I heard him speaking close to my ear. "It was my fault. I misjudged her. As long as you wake up, she will be at your disposal." In the end I survived. After I awoke, I dismissed everyone attending me, took up a knife and went to find Consort Chen. By April the weather was no longer cold. Yet I was shaking all over, so violently that I could barely hold the knife. The guards dared not stop me. Consort Chen collapsed onto the ground, her headdress fallen, terror written all over her face. Just a few strikes, I thought, and she could pay for my child's life. That blade never came down. An arrow tore through the air from afar, piercing straight through my hand. The bow was in Zhao Xun's grasp. Seeing him, Consort Chen scrambled to her feet and kicked hard at my knee. She threw herself into his arms, grievance and relief flooding her face after narrowly escaping death. Zhao Xun pushed her away and lifted me up. "Inju, I know how much pain you're in," he said. "But her crime does not warrant death." I had no strength left. Like duckweed without roots, I drifted lightly into his arms. Tears burst forth like a breached riverbank. surging uncontrollably down my cheeks. Consort Chen was confined to her quarters, forbidden to leave without an imperial decree. Zhao Xun was protecting her. Even the poison I prepared could not be delivered. I knew I would not live much longer and began to arrange my final affairs. Everything that needed to be said had already been said. To Zhao Xun there was only one sentence left. Establish noble consort Li as empress. He agreed. With his fingertips, he gently brushed aside the hair clinging to my cheek. A flash of confusion and sorrow crossed his eyes. He looked at me in silence for a long time before speaking. And what about me? Is there not a single word you wish to leave for me? His voice was unexpectedly hoarse. What could I possibly say to him? He possessed the realm, and his true love stood by his side. I wanted to say that I hated him, but I could not. I was about to die, and those who lived would still have to serve him as their sovereign. I curved my lips slightly, my face deathly pale, and said softly, "Then I wish your majesty a prosperous reign, 10,000 years without worry." His grip tightened abruptly. Zhao Xun lowered his head, pressing his forehead against mine, his body trembling faintly. "If there is a next life," he said, "I will still grant you the position of empress." A scalding tear fell onto my brow. My thoughts were already fading. Days drifting, I thought. If there truly is a next life, I do not want to be his empress. I died in his arms. He held my icy hand, unable to warm it no matter how long he tried. That day's rain was just like now, drifting, swaying, dampening my cheeks. I wiped the moisture from my face and let out a very soft sigh. The empress was to send a senior maid to lead me out of the palace. I waited for a long time, but she did not come. I turned back to look. The palace doors were tightly shut. Under the eaves stood a man, holding an unopened umbrella. Through the bead-like curtain of rain, he looked at me. It was Zhao Xun. I remembered that before the marriage decree, the empress had already tried to match us. I had pursued him for a time, riding horses together, hunting together, floating wine cups along winding streams. His attitude toward me had always been lukewarm, neither warm nor cold. It was only after the engagement was bestowed that he smiled at me, as if resigned, as if compromising. Spending a lifetime with you doesn't seem so bad. I took an imperceptible step back, lowered my eyes and bowed slightly. "Greetings, Your Highness." He walked down toward me step by step. Through the mist of rain, even his brows and eyes seemed damp, touched inexplicably with a trace of loneliness. "Why wasn't it you?" he asked. It was likely nothing more than genuine confusion. Between Li Shuanghua and me, the empress had favored me more, and I too had been fond of him. I froze. Everyone around us had been dismissed. When he did not receive my answer, he lowered his head to look at me. The young Zhao Xun had always been taciturn and aloof, seemingly at a loss for words. Hesitating, he asked again, "Why wasn't it you? Mother chose you at the beginning." I did not know how to answer. I could not tell him how, in my past life, he had treated me so coldly that it broke my heart. Nor could I say that the hatred I carried into this life had not faded, that not only did I not wish to marry him, I had once wanted him dead. I pressed my lips together. "Because Your Highness does not love me. To spend one's remaining years facing someone who does not love you would be unbearably dull and painful." Those were words he had once spoken himself. He said Consort Chen was special, that she was the one he loved most. So I retreated step by step. To preserve the appearance of harmony, I even went to persuade the Empress Dowager in person. I did not force him to spend the rest of his life resenting me. I died young. So young that my mother's hair had not yet turned white when she came to the palace gates to see my coffin off. The official histories praised my virtue and harshly criticized Consort Chen. But when I think about it, a virtuous reputation is useless. Wealth and power vanish like smoke after death. All that remains is grief for those who loved you, and satisfaction for those who hated you. This time I want to live well. Zhao Xun fell silent for a moment. His hand tightened around the umbrella handle, his knuckles paling slightly. Then, if I were to say, heavy raindrops fell, striking the edge of the umbrella. "Your Highness," I interrupted softly, "the rain is getting heavier. If I don't leave now, the road will be hard to walk." Behind him the hall doors opened. A senior maid emerged at just the right moment, holding an umbrella, smiling as she came forward. "Your Highness, Her Majesty and Second Miss Li are waiting for you inside." She then turned to me. Seeing that I already had an umbrella, she still offered me a handkerchief, reminding me to wipe the rain from my clothes. I thanked her and accepted it. Zhao Xun's words were cut off. He did not continue. His gaze lingered on me briefly before he withdrew it and stepped back into the hall. As the doors closed halfway, the laughter of the Empress and Li Shuanghua drifted out. They seemed to mention Zhao Xun as well. He let out a light chuckle and replied with a few words. The maid led me out of the palace. The palace road was long. Only those of high rank were allowed to ride in sedan chairs. I walked for quite some time, my shoes and stockings splashed wet, looking rather bedraggled. As the maid helped me into the carriage, she suddenly sighed, her tone meaningful. "Young lady, you're being foolish. Prince Wei clearly showed feeling toward you." This servant saw it all. Was it really feeling? More likely, my sudden change had simply caught him off guard. But I knew the maid meant well. Who did not know that the Empress had no biological children, yet favored Prince Wei and Prince Qi above all others? With no crown prince yet established, Prince Wei, being older, had the better chances. I lifted the carriage curtain with my fingertips and smiled at her gently. My intentions lie elsewhere. I returned to the residence early. No one needed to ask. They already understood. How could it be that I was not chosen? My grandfather had risen to the highest ranks of office. My father was a trusted confidant of the emperor. My talent and appearance were beyond reproach. How could Li Shuanghua have surpassed me? My mother took my hand and spoke hesitantly, telling me not to be too heartbroken. There are so many good men in the world. Marrying into a noble family would also be fine. I shook my head and said it was I who had declined. I spoke softly. I don't want to marry into royalty. I only want someone of good character. If there is no such person, then I won't marry at all. My mother was stunned. She never imagined that the Pei family, with its long-standing wealth and prestige, would raise a daughter with such a temperament. She did not know. I had been an empress. My name had entered the history books. Yet I had not lived well. But I believed she would understand. After my death, my mother wept until she lost her voice. Together with other titled noblewomen, she demanded the execution of Consort Chen. My father removed his official cap and knelt without rising, forcing Zhao Xun to give an explanation. I had clearly left a letter, telling them to protect themselves, not to seek justice for me. Thinking of this, I lowered my head, my throat suddenly tightening. When my mother saw my reddened eyes, she grew anxious as well. She patted the back of my hand, her tone softening. "All right." I felt an immense sense of relief. In the blink of an eye, 5 days passed. For reasons unknown, no imperial decree for Prince Wei's marriage was issued. The hopes of the noble families quietly stirred once more. I saw Zhao Xun again at the flower festival. Spring was at its height. 100 flowers bloomed in competition, the best season for outings. It was a clear day. Sunlight poured down warmly, allowing me to briefly forget the damp chill of the cunning palace in my past life. I sat beside the flower beds with the ladies of various families, cutting streamers and colored ribbons to tie onto the branches. Li Shuanghua suggested writing wishes on paper. Not far away, scholars had gathered, drinking wine and composing poetry. Third Miss Lu kept glancing in that direction, her cheeks flushed. Everyone knew her betrothed was among them, so they teased her into going to borrow writing materials. She returned with them, along with an attendant following behind. I recognized that attendant. He often accompanied Zhao Xun. The attendant carried a red sandalwood tray, posture respectful, smile obsequious. On the tray were brushes, ink, paper and an inkstone. "These are a gift from His Highness to Second Miss Pei." Such an honor drew many sideways glances. I, however, froze in place. The tray felt scalding, awkward to accept, awkward to refuse. This had not happened in my previous life. Around us, faint laughter arose. No wonder Prince Wei hasn't made a decision yet. Turns out he's dissatisfied with Second Miss Li. Li Shuanghua stood up, casting a cold glance at the crowd. Silence fell all around. She snorted softly, flicked her sleeve and left. I accepted the tray, set it down gently, and left behind a single sentence. Second, Miss Li has earned the Empress's favor and attends her closely. How could she be compared to people like us? She walked too fast. I had to jog to catch up. I didn't know how to comfort her. I could only whisper beside her ear, telling her she was already very good and needn't listen to others. In my past life, when I was weighed down with sorrow, she had comforted me. But people have different paths, and it's hard to truly understand one another. She couldn't untangle my knots, just as I couldn't soothe hers. After walking for a while, she let out a heavy breath and pulled me back. Forget it. If we hide, it only makes it look like they hit the mark. I cut colored paper. She wrote a few words praying to the flower goddess. I wrote one too, using her brushes and ink. Near noon the crowd dispersed. Zhao Xun walked over, stopping beside the brilliant flower trees. He was tall. At a glance he saw my paper charm. Tilting his head slightly, he read it aloud in a low voice. Revisiting old gardens, glad for the absence of wind and rain. Spring birds bring tidings of peace. He paused, startled. Is that all you wish for? I did not look at him. Yes. That wish alone was already rare enough. In my unbearable past life, all that fell upon me were bitter winds and relentless rain. Even before I died, it was clearly a season of gentle spring showers, yet I feared the cold and damp. My unhealed wounds ached terribly. Night after night, I lay awake with reddened eyes, listening to rain strike banana leaves, thinking of my own end. I had done nothing wrong, and yet I still ended up like that. The same scene, once Zhao Xun was added to it, would turn into a terrible memory. Zhao Xun casually picked up a ribbon nearby and glanced over it. Love, wealth, beauty. You ask for none of these? I did not answer him. A breeze swept through the treetops. Colored ribbons and streamers swayed together, spring light rippling in waves. I brushed away a ribbon that had caught on my forehead. His breathing faltered slightly. Sensing his own awkwardness, he shifted his gaze aside. The tray had been set elsewhere. The items he had sent were arranged neatly, untouched. Zhao Xun's eyes darkened. It seemed he finally understood how eager I was to avoid him. I had more urgent matters to attend to. After the flower festival, the thing I had been inquiring about for so long finally yielded news. I found Consort Chen of the past. In a ruined temple on the outskirts of the city, deep in the night's silence, I wore a veiled hat, biting down hard until the taste of blood filled my mouth. My maid Xiuyun bound the unconscious girl before us. She said, her household registration and name, everything has been verified. She's the one you're looking for. She didn't ask why I had developed such hatred toward someone I had never met, why I was determined to see her dead. She only knew that my hatred ran too deep. If this wasn't done, I would never know peace day or night. A sharp dagger was pressed into my hand. I stared at the familiar face before me, daring neither to think nor to hesitate, and drove the blade straight into her heart. Blood splashed across my cheeks, scorching hot. I collapsed to the ground in a daze, pressing a handkerchief over my face. A broken Buddha statue stood solemnly nearby, as though it took everything in with silent eyes. The night wind stirred. Scattered petals flew, returning to the earth as spring soil. I thought of the child who had come into this world for only a fleeting instant. She had no name. Consort Chen had declared her early death inauspicious, so she was not interred in the imperial tombs. Like fallen flowers, she vanished with the passing spring. I had been unconscious then. I never saw her one last time. I clenched the broken incense burner at my side, my nails digging in as if to pierce it. Pain seized my heart like a fist, my breathing stifled, my sobs forced down, breaking apart in fragments. Xiuyun froze, then gently patted my back a few times. I kept vigil from night until dawn. Only after confirming that my enemy from the past life had no pulse, her body stiff and cold. Only then was the first task complete. Xiuyun handled the body. Exhausted, I walked out of the ruined temple. Sunlight pierced through the heavy fog slanting down, and then I saw him. A figure stood within the mist. He was slender and tall, straight as pine or cypress, dressed plainly and thus unremarkable. I recognized him, but at this moment he did not recognize me. And he had witnessed me kill someone. In my past life, Zhao Xun often mentioned a man to me. The third laureate of that year's imperial examination, Lu Weiyan. Zhao Xun admired his talent and wished to recruit him. As Princess of Wei, I followed Zhao Xun and met him once. His official robes were crimson, striking in their clarity and brilliance, yet his bearing was austere as snow on Mount Gusha, making others hesitate to meet his gaze. Zhao Xun summoned him. Citing official duties, he declined coolly, which displeased Zhao Xun. The second time, when the Yellow River flooded, he and Zhao Xun went together to provide relief. Zhao Xun went to win the people's hearts. I sold my jewelry, dressed in plain white without hairpins or ornaments, and stood by the roadside distributing porridge. After clouds dispersed and rain cleared, the sun blazed fiercely. Seeing the suffering of the people, my heart hung suspended, unable to rise or fall. I stood there in the sun all day. That evening, seeing how worn I looked, Zhao Xun held me with concern and told me I needn't be so earnest. In the days that followed, I still went. Lu Weiyan was there as well. No one expected that an official from the capital, refined as jade, with the bearing of one meant to sit in lofty halls, would be standing knee-deep in mud, personally setting water gauges and reinforcing embankments, utterly unconcerned with soiling his robes. I admired him too, watching him for a long time. As if scorched by my gaze, his back stiffened. He didn't dare turn around. Later, when Zhao Xun tried again to draw him in, he learned that Lu Weiyan had already taken Prince Qi's side. Prince Qi was benevolent, and also Zhao Xun's greatest political rival. In the end, Prince Qi was defeated and killed. Zhao Xun ascended the throne, and Lu Weiyan became a prisoner. I went to the imperial prison to persuade him on Zhao Xun's behalf. Zhao Xun cherished talent. If Lu Weiyan were willing to abandon his former master and follow Zhao Xun, it would become a fine story. High office and generous rewards would naturally follow. The prison was damp and cold. I wore a cloak. He was lightly dressed, sitting in a corner, disheveled hair falling over his brows, his complexion pale, with none of his former grace. He lifted his head. His expression was calm and indifferent, as though he were already prepared for death. When our eyes met, I hesitated, wanting to speak yet stopping myself. In the end, I said nothing to persuade him, only ordered the guards to clean the place and bring him more clothing. I urged Zhao Xun to spare his life and exile him instead. Killing a principled scholar official would not reflect an emperor's magnanimity. Zhao Xun agreed and sent Lu Weiyan into exile 1,000 miles away. After that meeting in the imperial prison, until my death, we never saw each other again. The man before me walked closer. Only then did I notice the book satchel on his back, dust clinging to him from travel. Mist seemed to cling to his lashes and brows, lending his eyes a faint damp sheen. His features were unlike his past life self, soft, still tinged with youthful inexperience. I knew Lu Weiyan came from a poor family. I hadn't expected it to be like this ruined temple scholar, journeying to the exams. Everything exactly as the storybooks described. In those tales, a young lady would give the poor scholar money, then pledge herself to him. As for me, perhaps I would give him some silver as well, but only to make him keep silent, never to speak of what happened today. My palms were slick with sweat. Steadying the bamboo curtain, I reached out with one hand. Lu Weiyan spoke first. I've checked. There's no one nearby. And I won't speak of this to anyone. His voice was like a passing wind through the woods, shaking dew from the leaves. I froze, caught between shock and doubt. I trusted him. Once he spoke, his word never changed. But truthfully, trust or not, there was no other choice. A common-born consort could be dealt with quietly, but Lu Weiyan had already earned his rank and reputation. I couldn't very well kill him now and invite an even greater disaster. So I withdrew my hand and said softly, "Thank you." The white gauze of the curtain hung like thick mist. I couldn't see his expression, though it seemed he smiled faintly. And so the matter drifted away like a fallen blossom, leaving no trace aside from the three of us. No one ever knew. March. The spring examinations. Mother worried endlessly over my unsettled marriage, joking again and again that father should catch me a husband from the honor roll. The Empress was anxious as well. She selected another group of young ladies. But this time Zhao Xun had demands. No one pleased him, each lacked something. It was said he dreamed of a young woman. Born to a noble house, kind and gentle, her voice soft, always courteous to servants. They would advance and retreat together, live in harmony, zither and lute in perfect accord. In his dream, spring rain fell like silk, willow branches trailing endlessly. Yet he could never see her face. When he woke, he felt an aching sense of loss. There were countless gentle and virtuous noble women. But who could guarantee that the chosen one would truly stand with him through life, never parting? Mother looked at me with worry, stroking my hair. Highborn, kind, gentle. I feel the Prince of Wei is still thinking of you. That was not a good thing. I shook my head, hiding within my sleeves the hands that had been stained with blood. They were ice cold. No warmth could reach them. How am I kind? I said. I had just killed someone, and someday I would kill another. On the day the results were announced, I sat in a tea house, Li Shuanghua holding my arm as we watched the top scholar parade through the streets. She insisted I must look. If nothing else, it was pleasing to the eye. They say this year's Zhuangyuan is even more handsome than the Tanhua. I drifted for a moment. Before becoming a princess consort, I never concerned myself with politics. So many years had passed. Without cause, I couldn't even recall who ranked in the top 3. Spring wind brushed my face. Apricot blossoms fell. As I lifted my hand to smooth my hair and looked down, I suddenly froze. Lu Weiyan rode a white horse, palace flower pinned to his CAE, the height of his success. Yet his expression remained calm, unhurried. Apricot petals dusted his shoulders. The blossom that had brushed my temple moments ago spun downward with my movement. He suddenly looked up and caught it in his palm. As if sensing something, our eyes met. It felt as though years had passed, time itself blurred, and I no longer knew what night or day it was. Only when Xiaoyun came to summon me, saying father wished to see me, did I hastily gather my skirts and rush downstairs. This year, father was in charge of the palace examinations. Though advantage lay close at hand, he still argued fiercely, nearly came to blows with other officials, before securing a proper, reserved zhuangyin. Father proudly claimed credit before me. He said the top scholar was not good with words, too shy to speak to me, but with encouragement, he would personally come to propose. I was stunned. Not eloquent, it was true. His memorials were precise, every word polished. But afraid to speak to me? I recalled how people often said Lord Lu possessed striking looks yet an upright, unyielding temperament, and yet, he alone dared not meet my gaze, always retreating in panic, as though I were some great flood or ferocious beast. The Qianglin banquet had not yet begun. Lu Weiyan had already dismounted, standing to one side. Tall, composed, elegant, his fingers trembled noticeably, the apricot blossom in his hand quivering. He lowered his thin eyelids, his earlobes as red as the palace flower, his words hesitant. Lu is unworthy. I have only my sincerity and my life to offer before second Miss Pei. It must have taken immense courage to say this. I knew he was a man of fine character. I had seen him petition for the people. Seen him remonstrate directly, risking offense. Every side of him was good. I lightly rubbed the edge of my sleeve. Marriage was likely unavoidable, and if it were him, it seemed very good. I lifted my gaze and smiled. All right. Father laughed, nudging a colleague. Disperse, disperse. The Zhuangyuan is to become my Pei family's son-in-law. No need to wait further. Hoofbeats rang out. In an instant, the surroundings fell eerily silent. Everyone turned and bowed. Greetings, Prince of Wei. I followed suit, but he dismounted and strode straight toward me. His shadow engulfed me, heavy as storm clouds pressing down. Coldly he asked, Pei Yinju, what did you promise him? The Prince of Wei was meant to attend the banquet. Yet he stood here blocking everyone's path, fury written across his face, like rain before a tempest. I was not afraid. With ministers present, the emperor soon to arrive. Under so many eyes, what could he do? I raised my head and replied evenly. I agreed to marry the Zhuangyan. An ordinary sentence. Yet it was like a stone cast into water. Endless ripples exploded in his eyes. He looked struck by lightning, his body stiffening. Panic and confusion tangled in his gaze. Lu Weiyan looked at him, frost gathering between his brows. I lowered my head. The confirmation banquet was about to begin. I was not permitted to attend, so after taking my leave, I departed first. The Qianglin banquet was lively. Father later told me the emperor was greatly pleased with the young Zhuangyuan and personally bestowed the marriage between Lu Weiyan and me at the feast. The Prince of Wei was distracted. For reasons unknown, he shattered a wine cup by accident. My marriage to Lu Weiyan was settled. He sent many gifts, sometimes imperial rewards, sometimes paintings and calligraphy acquired through exchange. Before even entering the Hanlin Academy, the emperor granted him an official post and a stipend. The betrothal gifts grew and grew. I often stared at the list in surprise. In my previous life he had always been alone. Zhao Xun once teased me. A man like Lu Weiyan, if he married, what would that be like? He has only state affairs in his heart. To be his wife would be lonely. Now I knew. He didn't have great wealth, but he would give everything, offering up his entire heart. On a rest day, Lu Weiyan and I went out together. A small bridge, flowing water, fallen blossoms drifting. He held the oar guiding the boat. I looked down at him and noticed his writing hand, broad, well-defined. No wonder in another life he had carried bricks and drawn a bow. Being stared at made him uneasy. The boat veered, drifting toward the shore. I leaned slightly forward. The wind lifted the curtain. White gauze brushed his cheek. His lashes trembled. He turned away abruptly, lifting his hand to straighten the gauze, face and ears burning red, daring not to look again. Inju. It was the first time I heard him call me that. In my past life, when he came to the capital, I was already the future princess consort. Later I became empress. When the palace sent a decree to the prison, saying the empress had pardoned him, light returned faintly to his dull eyes. He accepted the edict with thanks, but never once addressed me. He said, "Actually, that day I was outside the temple the whole time." He was the top talent of Jiangnan. Many had already bet on him, gifted him travel funds. He didn't need to stay in a broken temple. He merely passed by on his journey and happened to witness me killing someone. Lord Lu was upright. But that one time, his only response was to stand guard outside and conceal everything from me. The wind wailed beyond the temple. I cried. He sighed. "You haven't finished settling the debt, have you?" he asked. Grievance surged again. I clutched the white gauze and answered dully, "No, no need to say more." He too had been reborn. He said he dared not propose, knowing himself unworthy. But having seen my past life, he realized that even the most exalted ruler under heaven could not make me happy, and thus was unfit for me. Reborn once more, he became Zhuangyuan, earned my father's approval, and only then dared to speak. He lowered his head. His shadow wavered on the lake, light shimmering. I asked for Inju's favor. The boat drifted for half an hour before finally reaching shore. I placed my hand in Lu Weiyan's palm. Lifting my skirts, I stepped ashore and met the Prince of Wei's retinue head-on. He had been waiting there all along. Staring at our joined hands, his expression darkened. Zhao Xun said he remembered everything. He remembered how I stood by him, not only building power step by step, but also standing at his side during the palace coup, sharing life and death. He advanced toward me. "Inju," he demanded. "Why are you standing beside someone else now?" His hair was uncombed today. He had ridden hard to get here. Disheveled, he looked ominous, stripped of his former elegance. He said to Lu Weiyan, "Had I known you harbored such intentions, I would have flayed you alive, regardless of Inju's wishes." He bit down hard on the final words, hatred unmistakable. Lu Weiyan showed no fear. Meeting his gaze coolly, wind rippled across the lake. The ribbon at the back of his head fluttered like a blade's shadow. "Your Highness," he said, "this is no longer the past. Who becomes king and who a criminal remains to be seen." Reborn again, he was not the emperor. The ending was unwritten. If the Prince of Qi ascended the throne, it would be Zhao Xun who faced execution. Zhao Xun's eyes reddened. He stared at me as his face slowly drained of color. "So you think so too?" he asked. "That I might lose?" The onlookers had already been driven away, none daring to glance over. He asked me, "Would you truly be unhappy," he asked, "to be my first wife?" Lu Weiyan's expression turned cold at once. He stepped in front of me, shielding me. He was tall as well, his presence no weaker than Zhao Xun's. "Your Highness," he said flatly, "is that really a question worth asking? When I died, I had been Zhao Xun's wife for 7 years. 7 years of propriety. I never once quarreled with him. He believed he had treated me well. Within the inner palace, power rested in my hands. Even when favored concubines rose above me, my position as empress was never shaken. Before my death, I wished him 10,000 years of peace. He in turn promised me a next life. He thought that was a weighty vow, that as long as we met again we would be bound, that I was destined to be his empress. But he saw my pain clearly and chose, arrogantly, to ignore it. Those words were nothing but empty courtesies, I said, looking at him. Fallen petals drifted behind his shoulder. The sky seemed to dim. I hate you, Zhao Xun. I only wish that in this lifetime we never meet again. I only wanted to protect the people around me. Every word I had ever spoken to him, not a single one was sincere. The expression on Zhao Xun's face shattered, inch by inch. His face turned ashen. He staggered back several steps, disbelief written all over him, his body swaying as though he might collapse. I lifted my gaze to Lu Weiyan and smiled gently. So, I asked, where to next? Likely the temple, he replied. To match our birth charts. Lu Weiyan and I had our 8 characters compared and chose an auspicious date. Zhao Xun had no way out. Only now did he understand how powerless I had once been. Seemingly holding authority, radiant and exalted, yet with a ruler above my head. Without imperial consent, nothing could truly be done. Zhao Xun knelt outside the Zichen hall, refusing to rise. A bamboo scroll was thrown out, striking his forehead. Absurd. Would you seize another man's wife? This matter will not be mentioned again. If you persist, return to your fief. Those were heavy words. They meant he would never ascend the throne. On my wedding day, Zhao Xun did not attend. The emperor also forbade Lu Weiyan from sending him an invitation. Zhao Xun drank himself into oblivion at the largest tavern in the capital. This time, when the drunkenness passed, he woke up. Yes, no matter what, he always chose himself. He was dejected. I meanwhile entered my bridal chamber. Zhao Xun had always been courteous to outsiders, cold only to the wife he did not love. Lu Weiyan was stern with others. Yet in front of me, his righteous composure vanished. 3 sentences in, his face would already be flushed, more often worried that I might find him dull. I drank a little wine, looped my arms around his neck and asked hazily, "When did you start liking me?" "From the first glance," Lu Weiyan answered. Candlelight flickered, blurring the boundary between past and present. I smiled at him, proud and teasing. "Lord Lu, how bold of you." His Adam's apple rolled. He knew that feeling then had been nothing short of covetousness. His grip on my wrist was light as he leaned closer, eyes bright as stars. "I can be even bolder," he said softly. "May I?" "Oh." Zhao Xun sobered up and buried himself in governance. With memories of his past life, he should have achieved greatness. Every move had been meticulously planned. A single deviation and everything collapsed. Our rebirths had already, unknowingly, disrupted the designs of fate. The disasters of the past did not arrive on schedule. The causes of the floods changed. The number of refugees differed. Zhao Xun, brimming with ambition, was caught off guard, unable to become the savior he had envisioned. But the Prince of Qi succeeded. He was benevolent, mindful of the people. Lu Weiyan and I traveled together to many regions. I still distributed porridge and helped at clinics. He rolled up his sleeves and took on the hardest labor no one else would do. I remembered when I first met him. I hadn't believed it then, that a man famed for his looks, the flower scholar, could be so upright, so willing to do such things. But this time, we stood together in muddy waters, our hems soaked, and it did not matter. The people along the roads praised our names, as if Pei Yinzhu and Lu Weiyan were meant to stand side by side. I drifted for a moment, and gradually understood. This was what I wanted. To advance and retreat together. Lu Weiyan was promoted and once again donned his crimson official robes. He became the Prince of Qi's trusted aide, calmer, sharper than in the past life, handling every matter with precision. But unrest stirred within the palace. The emperor fell gravely ill, earlier than before. And just like before, he died suddenly, leaving no edict, not a single word behind. The Prince of Qi was prepared. So was Zhao Xun. A coup erupted. After half a day of bloodshed, Zhao Xun escaped. Though at a disadvantage, He had once been emperor, familiar with the palace layout, with secret passages known only to rulers. The Prince of Qi was deeply worried. He feared Zhao Xun had not been eradicated completely. I said, I know where the Prince of Wei will flee. The Prince of Qi looked at me in surprise, then at Lu Weiyan. Lu Weiyan's expression did not change. I'll take men to guard you, he said. I found Zhao Xun. It had been long. Worn by anxiety and scheming, he looked haggard. His silver armor was stained with blood. Clearly at the end of his road, his guards were dead, but he still had support outside the palace. If he escaped, he might yet survive. I softened my brows and eyes. Zhao Xun, I can take you away. A simple sentence. The moonlight was perfect, illuminating my hair and skirts, just as it had when I once stood beside him. I don't want you to die, I said. He looked up in disarray. Tears glimmered in his eyes, joy, shock, and something like being moved. He had once given me hope like this too. He had said Consort Chen was mine to deal with, and yet he shot an arrow through my hand, cutting off my final chance to resist. I wanted to cry and laugh all at once in his eyes. It only looked like lingering love, my heart torn for him. After all, we had been husband and wife for 7 years. After all, he was confident I would always love him. Zhao Xun stood. I'll go with you. If we can kill our way back, the harem will remain empty. I want only you. I suppressed the mockery in my heart, lifted my skirts, and led him down a deserted path. But my strength failed me. Gradually I lagged behind. My fingers brushed the knife hidden in my sleeve. Gasping, I said, Zhao Xun, I can't run anymore. He turned back to pull me, and a blade pierced his chest. I drew the knife out and stabbed again, expressionless. His eyes widened in disbelief. A rasping sound escaped his throat. I smiled. Do you feel it? I asked softly. Being betrayed. He no longer had strength to resist. Still breathing, so I indulged myself in conversation. The Consort Chen you loved most is dead. I killed her long ago. I only regret you didn't die sooner, so you could reunite properly. He stretched out a trembling hand, trying to grasp my hem. His breath was faint, his voice barely audible. Inju. After you died, he whispered. I had her executed too, to pay for you. I didn't live long enough to know whether that was true. Nor did I care to ponder whether she had been his true love, or merely a favored toy of the moment. I only remembered this. I had once treated him with everything I had. He treated me with cruelty, like an enemy. I withdrew my gaze coldly and delivered one final stab. Hidden guards rose all around us. I found Zhao Xun. It had been long. Worn by anxiety and scheming, he looked haggard. His silver armor was stained with blood. Clearly at the end of his road, his guards were dead, but he still had support outside the palace. If he escaped, he might yet survive. I softened my brows and eyes. Zhao Xun, I can take you away. A simple sentence. The moonlight was perfect, illuminating my hair and skirts, just as it had when I once stood beside him. I don't want you to die, I said. He looked up in disarray. Tears glimmered in his eyes, joy, shock, and something like being moved. He had once given me hope like this too. He had said Consort Chen was mine to deal with, and yet he shot an arrow through my hand, cutting off my final chance to resist. I wanted to cry and laugh all at once in his eyes. It only looked like lingering love, my heart torn for him. After all, we had been husband and wife for 7 years. After all, he was confident I would always love him. Zhao Xun stood. I'll go with you. If we can kill our way back, the harem will remain empty. I want only you. I suppressed the mockery in my heart, lifted my skirts, and led him down a deserted path. But my strength failed me. Gradually I lagged behind. My fingers brushed the knife hidden in my sleeve. Gasping, I said, Zhao Xun, I can't run anymore. He turned back to pull me, and a blade pierced his chest. I drew the knife out and stabbed again, expressionless. His eyes widened in disbelief. A rasping sound escaped his throat. I smiled. Do you feel it? I asked softly. Being betrayed. He no longer had strength to resist. Still breathing, so I indulged myself in conversation. The Consort Chen you loved most is dead. I killed her long ago. I only regret you didn't die sooner, so you could reunite properly. He stretched out a trembling hand trying to grasp my hem. His breath was faint, his voice barely audible. Inju. After you died, he whispered. I had her executed too, to pay for you. I didn't live long enough to know whether that was true. Nor did I care to ponder whether she had been his true love, or merely a favored toy of the moment. I only remembered this. I had once treated him with everything I had. He treated me with cruelty like an enemy. I withdrew my gaze coldly and delivered one final stab. Hidden guards rose all around us. I had been careful. I had never lured him alone. Even if he realized my intentions, it was useless. Whether he died by my hand or by a rain of arrows, what difference did it make? Holding the knife, I spoke clearly. The rebel has been executed. Lu Weiyan strode forward and pulled me into his arms. He wiped the cold sweat from my brow, steadied my trembling body. Bending down, he pressed his forehead to mine and let out a long sigh. Inju, he said. Nothing more. Just the name again and again, filled with care and sorrow. From someone truly gentle and kind to this moment. He had endured too much. This should have been the first spring I truly lived after my rebirth. The new emperor ascended the throne, granted amnesty to the realm, and changed the tax to 1 in 30. Spring winds softened the rain. Dead trees met spring again. I had merit in aiding the dragon's rise and was granted the title of county princess. The new emperor, seeing how weary my spirit was, granted Lu Weiyan a month of leave to accompany me on travels. A painted boat drifted south along the river. Rain came as expected. I wore only a straw cloak, standing at the bow, letting raindrops fall into my palm. He watched my expression constantly, afraid memories would stir. I smiled freely. They won't. After all, it was only wind and rain across the river, watching the tide rise.
Thank you for listening Beneath the Moonlight. If this story touched your heart, remember to subscribe to Moonlit Love Stories for more tales of love and destiny. Until we meet again, may the moonlight keep you company.